Bill Cosby, not many people talked about what the Me Too movement is all about. Why do you think now we're actually talking about sexual harassment or rape or what has happened? Why do you think now is the time that we're talking about it?
I just think, just similar to other issues we've discussed this evening, social media and having that outlet really caused that attention to it, because I work for a media company. And so when these allegations started coming out, it was kind of like, oh, this is a name to what I've seen before. So I think it allowed for people to understand, especially those who have been victims of it, to really understand that it's a such thing. Like sexual harassment started becoming part of the workplace conversation. People know what it is now. And I think also it kind of created awareness even among men to kind of stop and think, at least in my experience. It's like they asked me, the men who I work with, and all of my management, they're all male. So they were like, have we ever said anything that's come up? Like all of a sudden there was this guilt trip, this unconscious guilt trip. So I think social media, hearing the stories, and I guess people were able to express what they felt without having to be in front of a group like this, you know?
But this is not new, though. I mean, these allegations with Bill Cosby happened over 20 years ago and just recently, actually. So why now? Do you think it's because it was somebody like a Bill Cosby that shocked us to get this information out there, to get this conversation started, particularly with somebody that many of us have seen as growing up as children as almost as a father figure?
Yeah.
I think it's really prevalent now because it gives, the hashtag and the movement gives a voice to the voiceless. And it's an opportunity for them really to express themselves without really identifying themselves. But a little back to Andrea's point, I don't think from a male's perspective it's really a guilt trip in any way. It's more or less checking in to make sure that, at least from my perspective, that they're comfortable and that we're not getting to that point where it's out there and we just don't want to really create witch trials, right? In a way where every little single thing can be blown out of proportion.
But do you think now that this has helped open the conversation among the men, you know, that we work with or that we study with, who surrounds us, has this now made it a little bit easier to talk to about it, or is it still something that you're adjusting to when you're talking to your female counterparts?
From my perspective, I think it's made it easier. I mean, I've had dinner conversations, lunch conversations, and it comes to a point where we can be open and honest, whereas before I wouldn't really even touch the subject because I didn't want to be perceived as maybe making a comment, a look of any type.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael? I mean, do you feel that this has sparked a new wave of conversation in the workplace or even in school?
I think it has to some degree, as far as the context of which we find it. Like, I think that, I guess because it's happened to, these unfortunate events have happened to these very, very, very famous people, and so we're talking about it, I feel like, in that framework, but as far as like on a personal level, yeah, it really, again, it really just depends, I think. And as far as the Me Too movement, I think that this whole movement could have probably started, it wasn't called Me Too, of course, but probably started a little bit before, but I think now it's evolved into something new.
Well, speaking of evolving, so you know, coming from South Korea, when you started hearing about this movement and everyone speaking up, what was going through your mind, and what did your community think about all this?
I think the Me Too movement is become a global movement. So South Korea is in the middle of its own Me Too movement. So prominent leaders in politics and education and art and entertainment, they are all have been accused of sexual harassment and abuse. So I know that this is only the beginning stage, but South Koreans are making important progress simply by beginning to talking about this issue. So I hope the Me Too movement, not only in Korea, but also around the world, succeed in making real improvement for the lives of women. So I think this movement is very important because we can share our voice with other people, and this is very important to us. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about the leaders themselves. So even our own president currently has been accused also of possible sexual encounters, unwanted. What do you think that says about our leadership, and how is it that you feel that we can either help educate or maybe move forward with those kind of allegations because it is the President of the United States?
I specifically think, as it relates to the president, I think it's a scapegoat. At this point, really, a lot of the people who helped put him in power really favor him because it's feeding to their agenda. But at the end of the day, the voice, the people who really need to speak up, giving a voice to the voiceless, they're all just victims, and that's why you have media outlets giving them a platform, because he himself won't acknowledge them. And even when he alludes to something, immediately you'll have the White House or his lawyers come out and immediately attack them and put them to shame.
Yeah.
And because of that, then, do you feel that it's either hindering others to come forward because of the empowerment? So we still have a little bit of a stigma, would you
Yeah.
say? Or do you think we're moving beyond that?
I mean, personally, I think it's, to your point of if it's motivating people to come forth about it, I really think that I've seen this Me Too movement expand more past just the sexual harassment victims and, feeling harassed in the workplace. I think it's also become empowerment for women in general, because I recently attended a Professional Businesswomen's of California conference in San Francisco, and the whole theme of the conference was Rise Up as One. So it was, a lot of, Ashley Judd actually spoke, and she mentioned about her, her unfortunate encounters with Harvey Weinstein, and she mentioned how that, it was unfortunate for her, but she also used it as a way to say no more and to help those who obviously didn't have a voice to express it. So I think it's expanded beyond just the parameters of sexual harassment, because it was so empowering to walk into a conference where every single woman in there felt that they didn't need a male figure to rise up. And it's not anything in discrimination against males in the workplace, but I think more so it proves that we don't need to succumb to feeling, like we have to accept these harassments from, people above us to succeed or to move up the career ladder. So I really think that it's pushed people to move past that and to really say enough is enough. We're going to help those who have been victims of it, but also come up and continue to I guess, succeed in a world where it's, maybe male dominated.
But also, you as a female, you could also give credit to, there could be some females
Yeah.
who might just become victimized for the role of maybe the spotlight on them or to gain some benefit. So
Yeah.
you do have to acknowledge that there's also that angle as well. Not to say that that's not happening, but it's something we all have to be cautious of as
Do you
well.
find that some people are just speaking up and saying, this has happened to me too, because they're looking for that kind of spotlight?
Yeah, the attention.
I mean, that definitely can't be discredited because, obviously not everybody is in everything for the right intentions. But I think overall in consensus, to what we've seen, it's been very serious, instances in which these women feel like they have to.
Well, one of the things that just came up just recently is one of our own football players
Right.
was accused of a sexual attack, and now that former girlfriend has just come on record saying she made it all
yeah.
up. But he lost his career
Yeah.
with his accreditation as
Yeah.
well. So a lot of the women that are coming up that are making these accusations against whether
Yeah.
these men are famous or not, do you find that we have to now make a check ourselves, like, well, what's in it for her, or maybe what's in it
Yeah.
for him?
Yeah, definitely. If you think of Ryan Seacrest, is in a talk show, in a very popular talk show, and then now he's hosting American Idol. And at the end of the day, these accreditations can affect not only his person, what he does day in and day out, but also any charities he's associated with, right? And it never was really claimed that he actually had any encounters. So.
Do you think it also was coincidence that also came out right when his new show, American Idol,
Yeah.
just came out on
Yeah.
ABC?
Well, I think that's a valid point, and we also see it actually, unfortunately, bubbling up when something big is going to come for an individual. Like, for example, the Santa Clara City councilman that just recently resigned after the allegations that he had sexually harassed former students and campaign volunteers and members. He resigned right before he was going to announce his campaign.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's saying, no, it wasn't me. But do we really know if it was or it wasn't? But the fact that it's damaged now his credibility, as a member of government, as an elected official, it's almost like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, why can't you just face your campaign and, keep going and prove yourself that you didn't do this? But then again, this movement has given a lot of credibility. Like, for example, if it was the instance of the football player where the girlfriend falsely accused him, I mean, if this was the instance here, then, that would be really unfortunate because, again, someone else's career is destroyed. But if he really was a perpetrator and he victimized all these people, then I don't think he deserves to be in office at all.
Last question. What do you think about the fact that there are some women who are saying, some women have to also take responsibility? There are some that are conservative women who are saying what has happened is bad. But at the same time, as a woman, you have to take a responsibility and maybe not drink as much or go home with that person, especially if they're married or involved or this is the lifestyle you went into. How would you respond to something like that? And do they have the right to say something like that?
I would say that really, you just mentioned that they're conservative women, but really I don't think it's a matter of being liberal or conservative. I think that there is a lot of sense in what they're saying because, for example, I think it's wrong if something happens to a woman and they get blamed for it when they were completely innocent. But then you also have to, there have to be precautions that you have to take. So for example, if someone is inviting you over and they sound kind of sleazy and they're inviting you at midnight, then you shouldn't go. We should know that they should, I think people should know that much.
What do you think, Jean?
I think that imposing a responsibility to women is not fair because, we are just a person, whether we are female or male. Yeah. We don't need to take a responsibility. We don't need to take care of our body. So this is just the problem for the. This is just the problem. It's not. We don't need to take a responsibility for women. Their action.
I agree with your point, and I think to what you said about how if you feel like they're sleazy or they're sketch, as some people would say. I mean, I'm in the sales industry and the media, and going out with clients is pretty normal for a lot of our account executives, especially the females. So I mean, if they're out and about with the client, the client can look sketch and everything, but I don't think we should live in a world where I have to double think my actions and a male doesn't have to. I think, it does have to do a lot with kind of your intuition. I get that. But at the same time, it's like I shouldn't be put in a position where I have to feel like I have to question going with someone when I don't have any bad intentions, but I have to think for the other person to see if they have bad intentions or not. Of course, alcohol plays into it and a lot of other things in the environment.
But at that point, really, there's two things that come into play, right? You thinking for yourself that you don't think you need to watch out, but how about for the business? Don't you want to advance your career?
Well, that's the thing. This is just me personally. I know that, let's say I don't sell, but if I want to close that deal, I want to close that $500,000 advertising campaign, but it's going to cost me my dignity or it's going to cause me to feel victimized. That's where I walk away and I say that.
Yeah, but there are safe ways to approach that, right? You can invite another colleague,
a male
colleague, to come with you as reinforcement.
If you
feel threatened by that potential client, it'll help you. In numbers, it just helps a lot to feel safe.
And that's exactly what this movement is all about. It's taking steps, being open, and discussing ways that we can help each other.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.